welcome everybody to the After Dark Show. I'm Don Rogers. Joining me tonight is this guest is a podcaster on Rumble. Her channel is Prime Declassified Podcast. She is a shamanic guide and an animal intuitive. And I actually met her through social media. We just happened to roll in the same community and have a lot of the same friends and have just come across each other. And we have a lot of the same understandings and opinions. So I'm sure this is going to be a really cool conversation. And I'm so happy to talk to Eve Thunder Howard. And by the way, that is like the best last name I've ever heard. And after you told me where it came from, that makes it even better. So welcome to the After Dark Show. Do you want to start there, or, why is your last name Thunder? Because it's one of the coolest damn last names I've ever heard.
Thank you. My father passed away in 2022, and my mother just passed away in May of this year. And to honor them, I ended up taking my mother's last name, and her maiden name was Thunder. So Thunder, and my father's name is Howard. So and she would go by, that was her name. Her last name was Thunder Howard. So I just feel like I'm honoring her in a lot of ways, because I really miss her a lot. She was, she was moms. What can you say about moms? But
yeah. And I love where your mom got especially because we're Canadian. Your mom was actually, the Thunder is because of Thunder Bay, correct?
Correct. That's where she came from, was Thunder Bay, Ontario. And all of my mother and my aunts and uncles had French names, so like Genevieve, Imogen, Joseph, Marcel, and, Jean-Baptiste, was my grandfather's name. And that was kind of funny that I had mentioned to you that my grandfather, Jean-Baptiste, but he liked to go by Baptiste, Thunder, had played in the NFL from 2021 to 2022. Wait, no, that's so wrong. 1921 to 1922. And he played for the Oorang Indians. So I think they played like 20 games, but Jim Thorpe was their coach, and he also played football with them. But it was an all Native American football team.
And you and I were just talking about this before we came on the air, and you kind of blew my mind the other day when you told me about this, because it's something that's not common knowledge that there was an all Native football team and that they were responsible for the halftime show. And like I was saying, it's just crazy when you put it together. But do you want to explain like what their version of the halftime show is, and then we'll get into what it became?
All right. So the owner of the team, he owned, they're called Oorang Airedales. They're like the really long-nosed dogs with the long fur that comes down and it sways. So he had owned these Airedales, and he had kennels, and he was breeding them, and he was selling them. And during the halftime shows, they'd bring out the dogs, and they would do like little tricks, and get them to go up on a platform or jump through hoops, or anything that they could do. And that was also a way for him to advertise his dogs. And that is like the first time that they've actually had a halftime show. So it was kind of based on Native American football team from like the 1920s, and the owner was having them bring the dogs out, and they would do tricks and stuff. And it was, it was for him to sell his dogs, but little did he know that would turn into something a lot bigger.
And it's interesting because I think that's very relevant that it's kind of stayed the same. It's all music and entertainment now, but they're still selling you something. They absolutely are. Like it might not be as commercial as the dogs on display, but they're still selling you something. And yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. So one of the first things I like to ask people, and when you go on Steven's show, shout out to my brother from, well, I call him my interdimensional brother from another mother, because my wife is my interdimensional exit buddy, and there's certain people that I know I'm connected to on an interdimensional level. This is a question that he'll ask you as well. is what was the moment or moments that started to wake you up and bring you into your spiritual awareness and like basically your aha or burning bush moment?
I would say that I was awake from a very young age. I had an incident happen when we were on my mother's reservation. I was about 3 years old, and I took off. It was almost like I can pull it back to that day, and I remember looking towards the direction of the lake, and it was like I was being called. So I left, and I was only like 3, and my sister and all of our cousins were outside, and my mom's like, "Go find her." So she took off and she went to the lake and she found me, and I was standing. There was like a little path that went to the beach, but it was a little bit offset from where you could go from my uncle's house. It was almost like a parallel path that ran around the lake. And I remember standing there, and I remember seeing like the shells and the reeds and everything like that. And I heard my sister call me, and I look off to the side and I don't see her yet. So I continue look back, and I'm just staring. I don't know what I'm looking at because it's almost like it's wiped out of my mind. But my sister came running up and she grabbed me, and she dragged me back to my uncle's house, and I got in trouble. But she told my mom that she saw a very tall being standing there and she's like, "Well, draw him." So she drew the picture, and it was a lot like when they had was it in the 1970s, 80s, when we were talking about aliens and people seeing aliens, like a gray. And my sister said I was standing there smiling at this thing, and it was smiling back at me. And that was about age 3. And from age 3 to about I'd say about first or second grade. By third grade, I was like completely done with my abilities. I am done. But I mean, I knew that I was going to see the end of this age and the beginning of another one. I knew that I was here for a reason. I knew that we were like a very big ant farm. I mean, the things that I knew when I was younger compared to, the time from when I was like, nope, I'm done, because it was scary for me. You didn't understand it. Everybody was telling you it's just your imagination. Oh, you should write books when you get older, or you should, write screenplays because you have such a vivid imagination. Well, it wasn't my imagination. I mean, I was constantly burning out lights. Things were turning on and off. Everybody thought it was haunted, and it wasn't. It was just my abilities to be able to control certain things, turn on TVs, turn off TVs, turn on fans. And I know that I did that recently. I turned on my oven fan without touching it, and all I did was think, I need to turn the fan off, turn the fan on, because my turkey burgers were burning. And then when I go to turn it off, it was telling me it's already off. And I'm like, yeah, it's on. So I had to end up going and pulling the plug on it, and then, plugging it back in. But a lot of really strange things. I had to be very careful around electronics because I can ruin them. If I'm angry and I touch anything, forget it. It's done.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I've seen examples with my own eyes of like highly energetic people having effects on electronics. I absolutely believe that is something that does happen, and like shorting things out in high. We project emotional frequency, and it interferes with electronics and electronic things sometimes. I absolutely believe that. The other half of that question, I think, would be, what was it like as you were growing up
Oh,
with your native beliefs and your spiritual understanding? Because those two things would overlap and then probably not overlap in a lot of ways. And I was just wondering what that's like.
well, it's funny that you should ask that, because I was just thinking about this today. Is that my parents were they were put in residential boarding schools as children. My father started when he was about 5. My mother was in boarding schools when she was about first grade, and she ended up, or they didn't believe she was in first grade, so they made her redo kindergarten again because she was so tiny. But my grandparents, except for my dad's dad, had all passed away, and they were put into boarding schools and, you know, separated, because what they were trying to do is they were trying to take the culture away from the children, so that, they could only speak English. So when they went home, they couldn't understand their own families. They were trying to pull that culture and all, the language, the ceremonies, everything away from them. And so my parents, when they graduated from the boarding school system, most everybody kind of, you're so used to that, almost like a setting where you're in a controlled setting. My father went into the military at the age of 17, and my mother was part of a different program where she was like, they used to have, they called them the snatch generation, where they would come in and take your children. But for some reason, she was allowed to keep hers. So I don't really understand that, because, most everybody lost their kids if you weren't married. I think she had her marriage annulled and she had 2 children. So they looked at her as being, a single mom. But my father did the 4 or 5 years in the military, and they knew each other. Like, my dad's sister was my mom's best friend. So, they wanted to become like very urban, because it was more money to be made in the cities than to stay on the reservation. So I was raised kind of one foot in, my world, and foot in another world. So I had to learn to basically figure out each world on my own, because I wasn't brought up. I still went to powwows, I danced, but there was like almost like I could only go so far. And then going to the reservations and asking people, hey, I think I can heal people. I need help. And I had a lot of doors slammed in my face, because, even though I'm 4164, compared to the BIA, I'm about 7 A's, or a little bit under 7 A's. I think it's like 66% if you want to do a fraction or a percentage of how much Native American I am.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't accepted with my own people, and I wasn't accepted in the other world either. So, I had to, kind of maneuver a lot of stuff on my own, which was, it was hard.
That is an amazing story. Even thank you for doing it, because you're providing information and help to this community, even by sharing your story. Like, you're just blowing away the chat. And something you touched on there was how a lot of natives were taken into the military and these schools. First of all, can you explain the belief about the connection with the creator and one's hair, and why it's cut off when you're put into these organizations?
Well, what I was told, and this is, it was validated through quite a few other the elders, is your hair is part of your central nervous system. So it's an extension of your actual nervous system. And I haven't cut my hair, and it'll be 4 years pretty soon. And I'm able to see, walking into a room, I'm able to pick up a lot of like vibration. So if people were just arguing in there and then they left, I can feel that. If something's off with them, I can feel that. If someone is sick, I think my medicine man asked me, how do you feel, pain? And I feel it like a heat, and I can see it. I could see auras when I was younger, but a lot of that stuff scared me. So I just like locked it away behind this door, and I didn't want to deal with it. And then dealing with the generational trauma, because it goes through the DNA. It's not, they try to say, oh, that's not a thing. Yes, it is. Because if your great great grandmother had trauma from being, going through everything that they went through, it's going to pass to every generation. So I had the generational trauma, but how, who am I going to talk to help? Because you go to the elders, and they would just be like, just partake in the ceremonies and go to powwows and, learn the language and okay, but that it wasn't cutting it. And I went experienced a lot of self-medicating with alcohol, prescription drug use, and street drug use. And I had to basically, you know, get rid of that. And then everything else just kind of fell into place. But it was how do we get rid of generational trauma? And there's more than just generational trauma. There's generational guilt for people that had no hand in it whatsoever, but it's passed down from their ancestors. And these are non-indigenous people. And they feel such guilt, and they're very, they can be very defensive, and they don't know why. Well, it's generational guilt, generational trauma, and we have to be able to heal that. And the only way that I could heal that was I had to learn forgiveness. I had to forgive. I had to forgive myself for dealing with this trauma for years, and drinking and putting stuff in my body that disconnected me from my abilities and from my gifts.
Absolutely. And I want to hit on a few things you said there because, when you were explaining the stuff with the hair and the connection to the divine or the creator, I'm one of these people, and I don't think it's predictive programming. I think it's truth in advertising. I think they show us a lot of truth in a lot of movies. And when you and I started this conversation about the connection to the creator and our hair, the first thing that came to mind is Avatar, because you can actually connect to Awa. Sounds an awful lot like somebody else we know here. But you can connect to Awa through your hair by touching a tree. And I think that is absolutely the way it is supposed to be. We are supposed to be able to have that hands-on connection with Mother Earth and be able to, like, through every one of our pores, but we're so blocked and so junked up that we can't make those connections anymore. And like I've almost gone down the shoes are a trap rabbit hole because it disconnects us from Earth, right? Except I live in Canada, and you kind of gotta wear shoes because your feet will freeze, right? So it's one of those situations. But I really do think we've been disconnected in so many different ways. And like you were saying, with the drugs and the alcohol, that was a huge catalyst for me as well, because it wasn't until I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I stopped taking pharmaceuticals. I'm not telling you to stop taking your medication. That was not medical advice. This is what happened to me. But as soon as I stopped taking,
Right.
I didn't want to get a strike again. As soon as I stopped taking my medication is when my awakening really clicked off. It was that clear vessel that allowed me to have the clearer connection. And I think everything you said resonates with that fact that your sobriety and cleanliness cleared that frequency, that connection to the creator.
Oh yeah. And I was like just jacked in with my intuition at that point, and it was telling me, you need to meditate. I was meditating twice a day. You need to go on this detox where I did just nothing but organic fruits and vegetables for like 2 weeks. And then I slowly started adding in a little protein, but I was like, no gluten, no sugar, no caffeine. And I think it was my daughter's birthday, and she's like, Mom, I really want you to have a piece of pizza with me at my birthday because grandma and grandpa don't eat pizza. And she wanted someone to eat pizza. I tried to eat. I ate half a piece and I got really sick. So I mean, even the normal foods that you think, oh, these are good for me, there's dairy on it, there's vegetables, it, try being on an all organic fruit and vegetable diet and then go and eat a piece of pizza. You'll understand what I mean about being sick. And this is just normal food that we think is healthy, and it's not. I mean, I was just green tea, decaf green tea, and water. If I wanted like a little sugar in my tea, I would have honey, which is a divine food. And that is one of the reasons why they're trying to take away our bees, because they know that it's divine food. They know that the bees are the ones that pollinate. And if they can eliminate like certain vegetables, fruits, trees, they're going to do it, and they don't care that they're ruining their home. They just don't want us on their home anymore. And
I Sorry, I got excited there. It's
No,
like,
no, it's okay.
yeah, I totally agree. It's so crazy. Like like I said, I live in the country, but I drive to the city every day, and you can see it's almost like this weird abstract painting that you drive into every day. You just kind of lose touch with the reality of Earth and drive into dystopia. And that's what it feels like. It's this huge separation. And I get it. Like, you can see where the technological age is encroaching on the Earth's natural function. And it's scary when you actually start to see it and you see what they're doing to the pollinators and the plants and the trees. So that's why I got a little, yeah.
You're okay.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to guide me back to what we were saying, because I have I had a concussion and TBI, so I have my short-term memory is completely gone. So I'm able to remember a lot of things before the accident, but afterwards I'm a little foggy. So if I get off course, just gently steer me back. But we were talking. One thing I wanted to mention was even though they disconnected me from my people, from my culture, I ended up doing like a lot of healing, and I didn't know how I was doing it when I was a kid. I did like plant medicine, intuitively. And then also I started to do hands-on healing. If someone got hurt, I was over there, trying to find where the heat was, putting my hands on there. And I wasn't quite clear what I was doing. And then I went to my medicine man and he said, how, are you able to take on other people's pain? And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, that's like one of the things I want to be able to. I think when you remember the Green Mile, when John Coffey would heal someone, there would be like these gnats or something that he would spit out. But I wasn't able to do that. I tried everything. I'd go out and scream. I'd go out and lay on the grass. I couldn't get it out. So, and I would take on other people's pains and aches and injuries as my own. And I went to my medicine man. He's like, when you come back, he's like, I'll teach you how to release that. And when I was going to go back, I found out that he had passed away. So, and then after that, the scandemic happened, and I ended up taking some healing. Went to a Reiki master, a Suru Reiki master, and I started taking these classes, and it was like level 1. And then at the end of that, you take an initiation where she comes in, you put your hands out, your eyes are closed, and she does, symbols on your hands. I was nervous. And I do believe I was talking to someone previously and they're like, have you ever called your guides in? I'm like, I don't know how to do that. They're like, just say, I want, my name is, and you're my guide. Could you please show yourself to me? Well, when he showed himself to me, he was a being of light, and he showed me this sword that he had, and then he kind of like handed it to me, but it wasn't. I don't think to me he didn't look like he let it go. It didn't seem that heavy. I was holding it, and there were etchings on the blade, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." He's a warrior, just like me. I like to think of myself as a warrior, Ogichida, and when I went to the level 1, I got kind of worried when she was doing this initiation. And so I intuitively called him in, and he was behind me, and he stepped forward when she came towards me and stepped towards me. I felt her take a step back. And then I had my eyes closed, so I couldn't see, but I just felt her move away. And then she moved forward, did everything she needed to do. And then I was the last person to get initiated. She's like, we're going to talk about this. She's like, some of you are clairaudient. And she's like, and some of you have guides. And she looked right at me, and I was like, oh no, what am I getting in trouble for? So she said, explain this man, because he stepped up behind you and was like, what are you doing? Because she could hear him. I couldn't. I just hear like a high frequency in my ears. And I was like, I was kind of worried about it. So I called him in for protection. And she's like, can you describe him? And I said, well, he's just a big being of light. I was like, he does have a sword though. And there's like etchings on the sword. She goes, do you know who that is? And I have no clue. Do you? And she was like, that's the Archangel Michael. And I was like, whatever, because I'm not religious. I wasn't brought up religious. I've never read the Bible. And I was like, wasn't he in the Bible? Wasn't he, something to do with religion? And she was like, no. So after, being able to like communicate with him, I communicate through like a lot of yes and no answers, and then also just hit the imagery that he gives me. And that's what I see when I work on people. I see images, so I mean, sometimes it's like, I think this one person, I won't name names, but I had this really weird looking ship that I drew, and it was like shaped like a turtle shell. And I'm like, this is like a weird turtle shell ship. Well, he jumped up and took off, and I'm like, oh, did I say something wrong? And his wife was sitting there. I don't know. So he comes back and he goes, this is 5 years ago. And he had a notebook and he's like, 5 years ago. And here I had drawn the turtle shell ship that he drew 5 years ago, that he had saw when he was like, a kid or teenager or whatever. So I think what it is just, we were going to talk about like animals and shamans. And I see a lot of things online about people being certified for being a shaman or being, a practitioner. And it kind of, I got in an argument and I was kind of upset about it. I said, it's just, I went, I was like, I had to learn. So in like 2013, I was able to feel people's pain and, animal pain. And then in 2014, I had to actually feel somebody that I cared about pass away. And I had the exact same symptoms. I didn't even know what was going on. I didn't know until they passed the next day, and I didn't know who it was. But when I found out, I was very upset. And they hit a bear one weekend during a powwow. A SUV came up and just hit this bear on the side of its head. And I was so upset. And I'm like hanging out the window seeing this bear. And the next thing I know, we're down the road and my husband's hanging onto my jacket. And I'm like, let go, and he's like, you were going to fall out the window. You were screaming. And I was like, I do not remember that. I was like, I do kind of remember somebody screaming, but I thought maybe it was somebody in a car or something. He's like, no, you were screaming. And I was like, I just had like the worst pain in my head at that moment. And it was like right here, exactly where the bear got hit. So I'm able to, transmute these emotions, and even death. So then the next step for that was I had to have an NDE and come back. And that was like the final test. So when I passed away, and we were going to talk about that. So I'm kind of excited. I'm not going to give too much away. But when I came back, I had completely changed. Completely. So, I mean, I don't know if it was like a walk-in or what, but I had changed. And that was the final test. So, I mean, you can't go and you can't get a certificate to be a shaman. You have to be able to go through those steps. You have to feel, you have to experience, and then you have to have like a near-death experience where you come back. That makes you a shaman, not just getting a certificate for $67 online.
Yeah, there is a lot of metaphysical certification for sale, and I don't believe any of the true wisdom comes with a price tag. It comes with speaking with people willing to share the knowledge. And that's as politely as I can possibly say that, other than calling people fucking gatekeepers. Uh, yeah, sorry, that shit pisses me off.
No, I'm with you on that. And the thing is that I kind of get upset because, I mean, I'm Native American and I would go to these people, sharing your knowledge. We need to share this. And they would tell me no. And they would gatekeep it. I was like, you know what? How are we supposed to do what we came here to do, to help humanity? Because we're doing the medicine wheel. We're going all the around, we're going back to our roots. How are we supposed to do that if we aren't willing to share the information? So I started sharing it. I talk about Sabe, which, a lot of people call him Bigfoot Sasquatch. He is one of the 7 grandfather teachings. He is one of the beings on that. And you can look it up. I'm not pulling your leg or, trying to talk a good spiel, and he teaches honesty. And that's the one thing that we need to be is honest. We need to be able to share. We need to be able to forgive. We need to be able to love. We need to be able to stop fighting, because it's like they know what they're doing. They'll throw in a bone and everybody dives on it and fights. And, we'd all have, just it would be so much better, and we could stop the BS if we could just get along. And people are still arguing about, I don't know anything about politics. So when someone comes in and says something, I don't even know what to say because I don't know politics. So I mean, I don't even know what the left or anything like what it means, because I don't involve myself in that, because I know it's programming. I know they use it for control. It's the same feather, the same wing on the same bird. One is this side, one is this side, and it's the same bird. Why are we fighting over this? I don't get it. What are we fighting about skin color for? We're all the same underneath.
Yeah.
Our blood is still the same color. I mean, I don't understand, but I just kind of disconnect a lot from that, because it's not going to serve us to continue to keep fighting, and we aren't going to get rid of these people until we can learn to all stand together. There's definitely way more of us than there are of them. Just saying.
Absolutely. And before I take the question from the chat here, I totally agree. I've always had the opinion of politics. So you want me to pick the guy that's going to steal from me? Got it. I really don't want to play that game. And I love how you broke that down, and I hate to oversimplify it, but they keep us so busy, even in this community. Like, a lot of people are like, this is an echo chamber. No, this is a community. We are getting bigger. We are expanding. But exactly what you were saying is, people are so busy fighting over the differences that nobody's bothering to stop and look where things line up, right? And it's those things that it's like, wait, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person all said the same thing. Then there's got to be some validity to that. Maybe we go down this path instead of fighting about these 16 different stupid little differences, right?
Okay.
And that's the mindset. As humans, we're programmed to not get into that. We love competition. We're taught to compete. We're like, oh, I'm right, you're wrong, right? And that's the way we're programmed to think. And it's not until you can get into the frame of mind to start thinking like, wait, you're right, and then you said the same thing as that person said. It's spotting the patterns. Pattern recognition is actually considered a disability, but it's one of the most dangerous things to the construct, and that's why they don't like it.
Oh yeah, that's what ADD and ADHD is just an interdimensional multitask. And that's why they give you the medication for it, so that you can't do it. That's a medical disclaimer. Do not go off your medication. We're not saying do that. I'm just saying these have been around since before any of the pharma companies were ever around. And in my tribe, it was, you go to the medicine man and he would give you the herbs or the plant medicine, and then breath work and meditation.
Yeah.
But I see a question here. It says, do you ever have attachments when you come back? No, because this is one of the important things. You have to be able to call in your protectors. You have, I had a medicine bag. I used to, I tuck it in my shirt or put it in my pants pocket when I would go to sleep, because I shamanic travel at night. So I leave, and when I come back, I come back with messages, and I've been doing this for myself, and now I'm starting to do it for other people. So, yeah, you definitely need to protect yourself when you're even at night, because, you think, oh, I'm just dreaming, I'm in my bed. No, no. That's not the way it works. We are here in this, I like to call it a soul training construct. It's not what they all say it is. It's a soul training construct. And we're here, and it's not based on binary code. It's not zeros and ones. It's based on consciousness. We come here to remember who we are, and to be able to remember that we are the creators, and we can create this construct just by intention and using our unconsciousness, manifesting. Today I had a client come in, and we were manifesting for her, and I teach classes. So it's easy to, come on the podcast and talk about it, but that has to get really more in depth. So, I mean, I think this October I'm doing animal healing and transition, which means when they leave to the spirit world, you can guide them back and how to do that. And then next month is Native American History Month, and we are doing shamanic journeying, where I can teach people how to do this. And it doesn't matter if you're indigenous or not, we all have these abilities. We as natives, we're not sitting here saying that we're more special than you because we have these abilities. Everybody has them. It's just we're more in tune with them. And then in December I'm teaching lucid dreaming. So unfortunately my website is not up yet. We have to it's under construction currently, but yeah, I think, where were we going to go after this? I can't remember.
There is another question, and she just said that her website's not up yet. Hi, Michelle. But my wife was asking her these classes online because I know she'll be one that would be wanting to take them. So you probably already have somebody signed up for at least one.
I do. I'm just concentrating right now on animal healing. Is this weekend. If I don't get enough people for that class, I will move it. I had a second class set up for the 19th, which is a Sunday of October. And you're going to get certified. So you will get a certification, and that is like $150 for the class. It is about 6 hours, give or take, depending on how the Q&A goes at the end, because I want everyone to be able to understand what it is that they're doing when you're working with animals, when you're healing animals, when you're intuitively understanding them, and then how the transition goes. It's going to be very much indigenous transitioning. So you're going to have like a 3-day after that, and then the burial and spirit plates and everything that we do for our funerals are things that I did for someone's dog recently. And I was very connected to this dog. This dog was giving me images. This dog was sharing a song that he wanted his owner to know that this song was how he felt. And then we manifested him back because it was her animal guardian and had been with her throughout every single lifetime. So he was like, they came in and they attacked him. Basically, the vets, there was no reason for them to give him 12 x-rays. They were like, oh, well, the x-ray machine wasn't working, and then they gave him medication that, basically unalived him,
Yeah.
and I did everything in my power to be able to heal, but I realized that this was his journey to leave. And he left like a little piece of his soul fragment with his litter mate, the other dog that she had. And now this dog is experiencing all these behaviorisms that her dog that passed away is doing. So she's been sharing all of this with me. And I work with my clients and their family. I'm not here for the money, because I mean, if you literally need healing, we'll find a way. I don't just throw a price up and be like, can't help you. That's not what I'm here for. And then you'll see a lot of people that are like that, and that upsets me, because you have the gift, you have the ability, share it. Share the knowledge, teach. That was my next step.
Yeah. Shoot, I just lost my train of thought. One of the things I was going to say is, Selena wants to take your class as well.
Okay.
Sorry, they tried to mind wipe me there. And also, I have a friend in the audience. It's Earth Good Rescue Mission. Her name is Michelle. She had to leave without her cat. Is there any way that you could talk to her about her cat or connect with her cat either now or later on? Like, could I put you two in touch where you could help her with her cat?
Was her name Michelle?
Michelle, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I don't like to give my phone number out on a public podcast, but
no, I
will
can make the connection off air.
Yeah, you can contact him. If you can message him, definitely. I can connect with any deceased, even relatives. I don't know how I do it, but it's a gift, and it's meant to be shared. It's not meant for me, and it's not meant to be monetized. So, I do a donation. Like, I call it energy exchange, because I think the word money is very dirty and I don't like to use that word, but an exchange.
Yeah. she doesn't think he's passed. She thinks somebody took him, and she's trying to figure out where he went. Um,
Oh,
yeah. Um, so I guess from there, there's another thing you and I have in common, and that's NDEs. And you kind of circled around this before. Are you okay with sharing your NDE
oh
experience?
yeah.
And then I have something I wanted you and I touched on before, and I want to get into that after you share your experience, though.
Right. Right. Um, so my NDE, at one point, I've had 4 back surgeries. I've had a total of 11 back surgeries. And I was put on heavy painkillers. Well, all of a sudden, dang, they did this to everybody. They just cut everybody's prescription off. And I was left having to either find my medication elsewhere. But by that point, I had already become very heavily reliant on it. And then someone was like, "Oh, you can do this drug and it's way cheaper, but they don't tell you how strong it is." Well, I think it was in 2016, and it's almost coming up. I think October 2nd was the day that's just recently too. 2 days ago. So it's been 9 years since this happened, almost to the day. I overdosed. I had taken too much, and I thought to myself, that might be a little too much. Well, I did. It was too much, and I died. And we wanted to talk a little bit about what was it called? Uh, something about death based on consciousness.
Yeah, I've come to the understanding with the things that I've been looking into that a lot of our reality is based on our perception and the way we
Exactly.
think things are going to happen. And it was actually a Rick and Morty episode in my own experience that made
I
me
love Rick and
realize
Morty.
that actually crosses over in death as well. Like what you think and what you project into your image of death is actually what you're going to experience. And I've said this before on my show. If you've been a shitty person and think you deserve to go to hell, there's a pretty good chance that
Oh yeah.
when you check out of this vessel, that's where you're going to experience first. And until you forgive yourself enough to believe that you deserve to be back in the creator's presence, you're going to go through these cycles. It literally is your next stage is what you believe you deserve to have happen to your next. And
Exactly. And like, so some of the people that are like, even children, they're like, they are able to manifest this beautiful place. And there's like, I think there was a book that Heaven is Real. I read that was amazing, but it wasn't enough for me because I was very flippant about it. I would be like, you're worm food. You get thrown in a hole and you're covered up and that's it. You just have nothing but darkness and that's it. So what happened was, after I had overdosed, that's what I experienced. People are like, "Oh, what did you see? What did you see? Did you see angels?" No, I didn't see that. It was complete being utterly alone, total darkness, so dark that there isn't even a place that could be as dark as this place. And it was no sound, not even your heartbeat, nothing. It was just blackness. And I was I don't know how long I was down there, but I'm assuming I was probably gone for about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, maybe 3. And when I came back, it was like I opened my eyes and I sat up and everybody was like, "You were dead. You were dead. Oh my God, you were dead." And like people were running around and I'm just sitting there going, "Oh." And I tried to get up. I don't know why, but I was like trying to get up, but it was almost like, if we're going to talk about Avatar again, when he transferred into that body, he couldn't stand up. They were like, "Oh, you have to wait, you have to wait, you have to sit down, you have to, adjust to the body, adjust to the environment, get used to your body before you start." Well, no, I was trying to run around, grab everything. I couldn't even stand up. I was kept falling down. It was almost like the scarecrow. I just kept falling over. I tried to go down the stairs and I'm luckily hanging onto the banister and I'm sliding down with one leg behind me. And I fell off the porch. they're like, please don't drive, please don't drive. And I sat in there and I started crying, and I was like, and they're like, just come in the house, come in the house. And they brought me in the house, and then they're like, made the coldest shower possible and threw me in there. And as I was in there, I remember just the only thing I could really think of was I almost fucked everything up. I almost fucked everything up. I could not, where was I coming from with this? I don't know, but that was the only thing that I could think of. And after that, I noticed a lot of changes in me, like food wise, music taste, even clothing, friends, um, how I treated myself was way different. You know, I was a lot more easier on myself. I wasn't, putting myself down, and I was a lot more patient. And also, I used to have what they called intermittent explosive disorder, which was an anger problem. And that has completely pretty much ceased. I haven't had an episode in a long time. I had borderline personality disorder, which is not bipolar. It's borderline. It's from trauma. So I had anxiety and, just up and down as far as, I can do it. And then the next day I can't do it, and it's just based on a lot of trauma. And I had a traumatic childhood, but, I had a lot more going on too with being, taken at night. And my mother said I was always talking about a man in my closet constantly, like screaming nightmares about a man in my closet. And she would come in, turn light on, nothing would be there. And, can I sleep with you? Because I mean, I was, I guess I don't know what it is, but ever since that episode at 3 years old and seeing that alien, now they're coming to me. And I have all these weird little beings that come and see me. And I'm just like, this is so freaky. Like, no one's going to believe this. I'm going to end up somewhere in a straitjacket because, who's going to say I woke up and once and I saw these things that look like fairy lights in my house. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to pinch myself because I'm probably dreaming. And I pinched myself and I'm like, okay, I'm awake. And I was like looking at these things and they were all just like, they weren't like blinking like fireflies. So I know that they weren't fireflies, but there had to have been about 70 to 80 of these things in the house. And they were just kind of surrounding me. And I'm just like, oh, I don't even know what to do. I'll just close my eyes. I've seen different types of aliens. Like I had brown aliens, they're like, well, they were kind of grayish brown. And they just showed up in my house. I woke up, there they were. I was like, what the F are you doing here? And I said it in my head and they heard me because the one tried to hide behind a door. And I'm like, I still see you. And then I caught movement over here and I look over there and there's another one, looking at me. And I was like, I see you too. What is this? And they all just disappeared and I just went back to sleep. I mean, I have been attacked at night, especially recently, with some really, I guess I have a friend who's a demonologist. And he said, these are low level demons and you're being attacked. And I was just like, well, I didn't get scared, but I mean, I know what to do to get rid of these things. And one of them was like a cold mist. And I woke up and I saw it and it was like, swirling around and stuff. And I looked at it and I'm just like, I tried to sit up and I was like, get out, except for I was like half asleep. So it was like, rah, rah. And it just kind of, I was like, this is a dream. So I'm about ready to go back to sleep and it goes over me and it comes back and it hits the back of my neck and it feels like a cold mist. And I'm like, okay, this is not a dream, whoa.
I love that because I do think, and like we were saying earlier about the clearer you make yourself, the more that channel opens up. And it's a personal theory of mine that I think that's a large part of what the ascension is going to be. Is it's not like everything's going to, and we're in a different world. It's we're going to be able to perceive things that we weren't able to. And that sounds like some of what you're tapping into is those higher levels of perception and able to see the things in your reality that are resonating at a different frequency that most people can't perceive.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was told last night, was all of a sudden out of the blue. I went to this, I think it was like 2022. It was a couple of months before my father passed away. He passed away in May. So it had to have been like maybe February, give or take a month. I was like, I'm going to get a message. And I immediately went and laid down. And this is how I'm going to teach the shamanic journeying, to be able to get your own messages and for others. So I laid down, excuse me. It's like they don't want me to talk. And I just cleared my chakra before I came on. So it was this, I don't remember seeing anything. I just remember the message when I woke up, and it said, "You'll know when you see us. We'll be in a ship shaped like a beehive." And I was like, okay. So when I woke up, I wrote it down because I keep like a notebook by my bed at all times. And so yesterday I was looking up like beehive shaped ships, and I'm like, I posted a little thing on it, and somebody was like, do you think that is, thank you. Do you think that this is 31 Atlas or Atlas 31? And I was like, oh my gosh, that would make total sense if it was. They said that they were going to be there. Yeah, like that. They were going to be in a ship shaped like a beehive. And I've had other messages too. What was it? I wrote them down too, and I forgot. But it was, I went into this like big, huge cave that was shaped like a stadium, and I'm being driven in by this vehicle that is self-driving. And as I get there into the cave, this voice comes into the car and it says, "You've arrived at the cave of the Seven Sisters." And I was like, all right. So I get into that, and it's like a big, huge stadium, and there's 7 openings for smaller caves. And there's almost like these spires of like part of the cave are these spires, and each spire has a torch. And I realize, when they talk about the Pleiades, this is who they're talking about. And you can find that in a lot of Native American indigenous stories about the Pleiades, about the 7 sisters, what their names are and what they're doing here. And I believe, I'm not going to say that I believe I'm one of them, but I mean, I was visiting in this cave with the cave of the 7 sisters. And recently the Pleiades were actually, they were visible. I think it was just one day, and it was somewhere in September. But that day when I woke up, I had these marks on my arm, and they're going away now, but they were almost like, I thought they were scratches, but there was no raised mark. There was no dried blood. They weren't scratches. They look like bruises. I had my chiropractor look at it, and he was like, "Those are bruises." And he gave me a specific name for them. And I'm like, where would I get these 4 bruises on my arm? So I've had these marks on my arm for a couple of weeks, and I heal pretty quick. But, and it was like after that is when I started to have these things visit me at night. And one of them was like almost like a little weird orange ball of fur that was about the size of a softball. And I felt it. I was falling asleep. It came running up the bed, and it tried to jump at my face. So the one thing that I did was I started growling at it, and it kind of stopped. And it was like, I couldn't see its face. It was kind of blurred, and it was really fuzzy. And I growled and I growled. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm going to advance again." So he came forward, and I snapped my teeth at it. And it was like, and it was kind of making a weird noise. And then I lifted my head up when it came at me again, and I tried to bite it. And I was like thinking, God, I don't want to bite this thing because I don't know what it tastes like, and it looks really gross. But it finally, it left. But it almost feels like a test of some sort. Not really a test, but like these things are coming. What are you going to do? And I actually had a very simulated dream after my mother passed away. And I had like pulled somebody into the dream with me. And then I walked out, we woke up, and we were in this room, and we walk around, and I go outside, and I see this weird looking owl in the tree. And I'm like, oh, that's not a real owl. Everything feels like Legoland here. I was like, I can send this person back. I sent this person back. And then my mother was right there, and she had just passed away. And so all these weird things, like my ex-husband, some friends and this big mob. It was kind of like it was trying to see what I was going to do when I was put in this situation. Are you going to revert back to what you used to be like, or are you going to stay focused? And I do remember I was like, I can get out. I needed to get out. That was the whole point of it. I need to get out. That was going through my head the whole time. I need to leave this place. I need to get out. I even tried to go into the bathroom of a house to crawl through the mirror because I know that mirrors are portals, and I've had dreams of crawling through mirrors as a kid. And I even one time I remember seeing a mirror and I'm like, I wonder what my hair looks like, thinking totally girly stuff. And I go up there and I see this woman looking at me, and she's got white blonde hair, and she just looks really worried and kind of stressed out. And I'm like, it scared me because, I'm so used to looking at what my face looks like, to go into a mirror and then look in there and see somebody else's face. It was, a lot of people will have heart attacks. I almost did. It was like, oh my God, who is this woman? But where are we going now? Forget. I tried to write everything down that you were talking about.
No, and that's fine. Like, it's fine because anybody listening to this knows that I've experienced other stages of my consciousness too. So it's right on par with what I talk about. One of the things I wanted to ask is, how soon after your NDE did you decide to become a shamanic guide? And what does a session with you during a shamanic guided session look like?
What it is it's basically, you will contact me, you will ask a question and try to give me as much information as you can on it. Whether it's, my mother passed away, or, my aunt passed away. And it's almost like I get this thing where I'm like, I have to get a message, and I'll just go into a meditative state. When I first started, I would fall asleep, and I would still get the message, but it's like, now I can stay at a very, like a non, like almost dozing off, but not quite type state. And I'm given messages. I know I'm not lucid dreaming, or I am lucid dreaming, because regular dreams, you can't see print. You can't see signs, and I see them. I see in print. I mean, I use my phone. I mean, I'm like trying to take pictures, it's definitely a lot different than, say, a normal dream, astral dream. And once I know that that's where I am, then I will get the information. I will bring it back. We'll go over it, and then we do healing with your spirit animals or ancestors, anybody who comes through, and they will assist with the healing. Like, I've had Sabe come and assist me with healings, and everybody's like so scared of him. What Sabe means? It means giant in Ojibwa. That's it. And from what I've been told, we didn't come from monkeys. We came from him. He's the only animal in all beings here that has a voice box. And we came from him. Now everybody can laugh at me, and that's fine. What anybody thinks doesn't really matter to me. I'm here to share information. I'm here to help others, and it's either going to resonate with you or it's not. I'm really good at boundaries. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with, not, I don't argue with people. I'm just okay. That's fine. Everybody has a different path, and we're all not on the same one. So, I mean, some things will resonate with you and some things will not. Your mission, your path may not resonate with me, but that doesn't mean that you're wrong. We just have to be able to realize that we're both right for ourselves. We are separate individuals.
Yeah. And there's another question from Lee, and you are not going to get laughed at by this chat. Like, we love you, no haters here, keep going on. So, yeah. Lee actually asked a question.
Sure.
When you're in that experience, is it like full color or black and white? Because I know some of my experiences of other versions of my or stages of my consciousness is very full, tactile, fully interactive. Like I can see myself, I can touch things, I can interact. I'm there for weeks. If anything, it's
Me
the
too.
time dilation when I wake up that's the hardest part to adjust to, because you're like, okay, I'm here again, right? I'm not that me anymore. But
Mhm.
like, are you living your life as you do now, or is it the black and white dream state?
I've never had a black and white dream that I'm aware of, unless I do see with my my third eye, my pineal gland, so I can close my eyes and I can see in a dark room, and it does come up kind of grayish, but I'm awake for that. But when I'm in the astral, or when I'm in a shamanic journey, it's vivid. Like I can go up and like look at things like curtains and be like, okay, this is I have to remember this. This is what the pattern was. And I can come back and write, colors, patterns, um, people that come up and talk to me, um, everything. I remember, but sometimes, I can tell when it's a simulation because it feels very like the graveyard from Beetlejuice type feeling. Like the grass kind of looks like kind of plastic. And that's just me seeing it like that because I know it's a simulation. I'm not saying that it's like plastic grass. It's supposed to look as real as possible, but I see things differently. So I'm able to see through that and realize this isn't real. This is fake.
Yeah. Um, and one of the other things we have in common is the whole concept of walk-ins, because I've mentioned this on my show before. My my interdimensional exit buddy Kyla calls me the other guy, because when her and I first met, she came to my house, and I was just sick of having shit relationships. So the first thing we did was literally just dumped our purses out. Like we sat there for like hours and just went, look, I'm screwed up here, 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 here. And it unlocked a stage of me, and it was basically the way I am now. And then there was like a 4-year gap where I just went back to being the person I was. But like the version of self that I am now actually popped through. And yeah, she's in the kitchen. She's like, that guy, right? Because I've become that guy. But for like years, I went back to the persona I was living, but now I've started being more of my true self, right? So it is that I feel as though this is a walk in, but it's also my original self, right? I've taken this back over from the me that I was 7 years ago.
Do you want to know something? These
Yes.
bodies are made specifically for our souls. So they can't just, and nobody else can just come walking in. It's like either you have to be like, the DNA has to match, so what's getting put into the body is during the walk-in is a version of ourselves that came here to learn something. Like maybe someone just wanted to come in and go to age 7, so that part of you will come in for age 7, and then somebody will come in, say you got really sick really bad, you ended up going to the hospital, or you got in a car accident. They'll use that moment to be able to slip in somebody else, and then say that person's going to be there until 33 or 34, because they have like a set, I wouldn't say schedule, but it's like a set path. Some people just come in because they need to experience birth, because birth is the most traumatic thing. If we're lucky, we don't remember it because it is the most painful, traumatic thing that you can possibly think of. But that's what I was told. So you're not going to get some stranger that just comes pops into your body. It'll be a different version of you, or a possible dimensional version of you, but the DNA has to match and everything.
Absolutely. I do believe that that is 100% it. Like, I don't believe I've ever been a different person other than Don Rogers. I've just been variations of him from other realities, because a lot of the things I've experienced, it's just like, yeah, but I won't get too much into me because that's a whole other subject. But it really is exactly what you're saying. Like it does feel like it's my life kind of feels like it's in chapters, because it's like, okay, yeah, at this point I was this version of myself, and then I was this version of myself, and then I was this version of myself, and now I'm this version of myself, and I'm heading to that version of myself. Right. And I think that's part of our journey here as humans. Like, you and I have a very similar understanding that I am a stream of consciousness operating a biological vessel coming from a source of creation, right? This is literally just a biological experience that we're all having in real time together. And it's one of the most wonderful things. But once you realize that it's up to you to develop the best version of your reality, then you truly become in control of it. At least that's what I would think.
Yeah, that is very true. We come here and just I would say that we have to become, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying that we're gods, but I'm saying that we are creators. We are here to create. We're here to, learn how to, and I think people call it manifesting, and I'll call it manifesting because people were like, what do you mean be a creator? You're saying that, you're God? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we have to learn to be able to, like, take this world, and I always call it, like, the Sims, and create it. Like, so if someone gives you a big ball of clay, you have to be able to make it into something. And that's what you do, it with your consciousness, not your hands. So I think it was I was able, someone was telling me that, oh, you have a cat around you. I said, yeah, his name is Sherbert. He died, really suddenly and horribly. And I just haven't been able to have a cat. But when I was ready to have a cat, I manifested the cat. And it was really weird because Sherbert had frostbite when he was a kitten, and his part of his ear fell off. So he had like partial ear. And the cat that I have now, when she was about 2 years old, she ended up having an injury to her ear, the same ear, because our DNA remembers the injuries that we've had. So I mean, I have memories of being like, I'd say 7 or 8 years old, and being I was like in the military, and I ended up having to go into this Costco because they were like, you have to leave your weapons here because the people that are being held, or the people that are holding them hostage, do not have weapons. So as a show of good faith, we're going to go in without ours. Now, what 7-year-old knows a show of good faith, knows what that means? But I was like, okay, so and I go in, and I'm walking all the way to the back of the store, and I have a comm in my ear. And there's these two guys at the back of the store, and one is looking at me and the other one is like this. He's looking up with his eyes. And I was like, what is he looking at? And I turn around, and there's a guy standing there with a automatic weapon. And all of a sudden I hear my ear, weapon, retreat, abort, abort. And I turn around and I start running to the store. I see the doors, I see the parking lot. I mean, it's light out, it's daytime. And I'm running, and I hear gunfire, and I drop. And I've never been shot in my life, but I can tell you exactly how it feels because I was shot in the back. Now, where I was shot in the back, because when I woke up, I got picked up by some teammates and dragged out. But I'm in so much pain, I'm not even aware of it. And all of a sudden, I'm back in my body, in my bedroom, little 7-year-old me, withering on the bed because my back is experiencing being shot. And fast forward into my 30s, I ended up having to have surgery on that exact same spot. So your body, whether that was a memory from a past life or a memory from, a dimensional reality, I have that injury in my DNA, and it manifested in this lifetime because I cannot prove, no, I didn't get hurt at all that I am aware of. I didn't get into a car accident. I didn't break my back. I didn't, someone didn't come up and hit me in the back with a 2x4. Where did it come from? That's the only thing that I can think of. But, strange things, stranger things, I guess.
I do want to touch on, I love that you used the Sims reference because, again, I do talk about my wife. Like, she used to be deeply enthralled with the game The Sims. And her and I, along this journey of awakening, or Stephen calls it the remembering your awakening, whatever, we've discovered that just like The Sims, there's cheat codes here.
Mhm.
And you can figure out, the code for simoleons on just figuring out how to interact with certain people. You will end up finding out that you have more financial abundance if you treat your situations with people differently. It really is about finding the correct combination of energy in order to get the best experience out of each interaction with everybody that you come in contact with. And sometimes that is about shifting the way. I'm not saying be fake, but be adaptable to the situation to make it as pleasurable as possible for the other person, and you're most likely to have a better outcome.
Most definitely. I would agree with you on that one. That was funny because I was just posted this Facebook post where it was like the Sims, they were all standing around and this guy's standing up. He's got the little green diamond over his head and he's like, hear me out, but I think we're living in a simulation. And that is exactly what we are living in. And, once you understand that, fear, everything just drops away because you have no reason to fear. You are made up of energy, and you can go into any science and the physics will tell you energy cannot be created or destroyed. We cannot be destroyed. We can lose our physical, you know body, sleeve, whatever. And most everybody, when I've talked to so many people, when they're about, somebody is crawling a tree and they, right before they fall, they black out, they don't remember it. Your spirit will leave your body so that you don't experience that pain. The dog that I worked on just recently, he was dying. Like there was flies on him. I mean, hadn't eaten I don't know how long. And I wanted to separate his spirit from his body so he wasn't feeling any pain. But of course, I was worried, so I took his pain on for him, and I just had the worst stomach. Oh my gosh, it was hurting so bad, and my sides were hurting. Like the left would hurt, then the right would hurt, and the left. And I crawled on my bed, and I was like, I'm going, I don't know how this poor animal can handle this. And I laid down, and then all of a sudden, bang, it stopped, and I was like, oh no. And I couldn't get a hold of her, so I didn't know if he had passed. And the next day, she called me and she's like, he's still hanging on. I don't know what to do. Can I call a vet? And I was like, let me go and meditate. And I went outside and I sat down on the grass and I started doing, first I healed myself and then I started working on the dog. I had his picture, so I had my hand on it and my ear is buzzing. But the next thing I know, I get done, I finish, I get up. I am so starving. I am so hungry. And I usually fast, so I don't eat until dinner time. I fast all day long. And I go into the house and I'm like in the freezer, and I'm just like, I wanted a steak so bad. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't even eat meat. Yeah, like, what am I wanting this steak for? And I look at my phone and she's like, I can't effing believe it. And I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, he passed away. And she's like, he's eating, he's up, he's drinking water, he's eating. And then she even posted on my Facebook, she goes, you bring dogs back from the dead. And it was like, no, I did lose one, but we're bringing him back. And I was able to pull his spirit today, and he was so excited, and he was jumping around, and he was making our connection on the internet. Like, I was like, you got to calm down, sir. You're like, he was like so excited because, we were manifesting him back into existence. So, yeah, I don't know what it is, the connection with animals. I'm going to say that it's a lot stronger for me than with humans. And it's just because I understand animals. I wouldn't say it's like speaking like language, because there's a language barrier there. Yeah, I can, like my cat, I was practicing with her, and I put my chihuahua in the bathroom when he was a puppy because he had a puppy pad, and I was like, I don't want to get up. I don't want to get up and get him. I don't want to. And so I was like, Cookie. And she looked at me, and I was like putting an image of her head of her walking over and pushing the door open to let him out. And she just looked at me for the longest time. And I was like, kept giving her that image and giving her that image. Finally, she turns around, she walks over and she pushes the door open and he comes out. And I was like, yeah. And I scared everybody. And I was like, I did it. But, I communicate. My animals know by certain hand signals, or just, my one cat was like, because I was like looking online because people are talking about their cats are teleporting. They're seeing this. I was watching this on TikTok. And my cat just comes up out of the blue and he's like, cats have a portal between their eyes. And I was like, did you just say something to me? And I'm like, now I'm losing it. Now they're going to put me on medication. I was like, he's talking to me. Nobody else is in the room. And yeah, that makes perfect sense, because I know that Sabe, he can teleport interdimensionally with his pineal gland. And I think it was like last July, I went on a camping trip and I was like, I'm just going to go where my body leads me. I knew I was going to meet him when I didn't, I can't remember it because I left my body and I went to meet him. And it was so weird how that happened, because my best friend was camping with me and they were like, you just sat at the end of your sleeping bag for probably 2 hours or an hour. And I was like, I don't remember that. It felt like only 10 minutes, but it was really weird because like my phone was glitching out and it was like black and white staticky, and it was like old TV. There were lines and stuff. And I'm like, what is wrong with my phone? And then we walk into the tent and like I have a green sleeping bag. I had a purple like pillow, and we had different things in there, and everything was gray, like different shades of gray. And I'm like, what the heck? And we didn't question it. We were just like, maybe it's just dark, but we had flashlights on. Usually your flashlight from your phone will just show the color of things, but there was no color in our tent. And I had just seen like this huge red orb by the car, and it was red. And then I kept seeing these little blue and white orbs peeking around trees. And I'm like, what is this? It's kind of cool. My buddy was looking up at the sky, like looking for UFOs. And I'm just like, there are things looking at us here. But, I wasn't scared. I don't know. Maybe I'm just one of them really weird people that just don't get scared.
I think people that are coming into this understanding, exactly like what you were saying, a lot of people would have the heart attack when they had those moments of realization. And me and a friend of mine, Frank Castle, have talked about this and missing time. And I should actually introduce you to, I don't know if you know Frank or not, but amazing conversation that you guys could have about interdimensional stuff, because he actually broke down how time is like, for them, it's like, the projector carousel, and they can just take one slot of time out and do whatever they want for as long as they want and just put you back. Right.
Yeah,
so
exactly,
you guys,
the same place that they take you.
Yeah. And if they screw up, it messes you up. And I've told that story a bunch of times, but, I do actually have a couple of questions, and I think they're from a shamanic standpoint here. And this is a buddy of mine. He's actually one of my dearest friends. His name's Lee, and we call him the Enigma. He went through a double lung transplant, was supposed to be in a coma for a month, and was up within hours and off the intubator within days, or hours as well. Like, he is a literal medical enigma. So I think this was coming from a shamanic standpoint when he was asking, because he's very interested in all of this energetic stuff as well.
He's a natural healer. He's a natural healer. And that's why, because I had almost a detached retina. And when I went to another doctor, they were like, what detached retina? It healed myself. So Lee is a natural healer.
Does she believe that emotions are stored in organs of the body? What does she think about energy from a different source? Does she believe that a host can feel their emotions? Just wondering. I'm wondering because I have interests that I've never had before, and food cravings too.
Mm-hmm. Well, most definitely. I mean, I've been called, I think I had a Hopi elder. He told me, he goes, you're a super duper empath, aren't you? And I was like, Yeah, I am. I mean, I experienced somebody dying hundreds of miles away and I didn't even know it. I felt my mom having a heart attack. I was having the chest pain. And she didn't even have chest pain. She felt like she had the flu. But I was feeling a chest pain because it was telling me this is a heart attack. This is a heart attack. Um, I I I can take on a lot of people's emotions when I don't mean to. And I think one of the things that I had to learn was to shield myself when I go anywhere, because I can sometimes walking by somebody, I get like this blast of just like this information, and it can be maybe they're stressed out about something, and then it affects me. And then now I'm stressed out. And it's like, dang. So I don't even like to really go anywhere. I stay in my house like an agoraphobic. But when I do go out, I have to shield myself because you can see it when I walk in, like animals, like dogs in the next car are like hanging out, like oof, trying to get my attention. Um, and then there's like babies. They're like breaking their neck looking at me, and I have to be able to shield because it's almost like this. I can't I don't know what it is, but I know that it's quite possible because I had this lady follow my son around. She was waving her arms at him and he was at a music festival. She was standing on a table waving her arms at him. Hey, hey. And he was just like, meh. And they're walking around the music festival and she jumps down, runs after him, catches him, grabs his sleeve. He turns around. She goes, "Did you see me yelling at you back there?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You are nothing but a being of light." She could see him, and this is my son. So, I mean, it runs in families, not all of them, because I found out that, NPCs can give birth to original souls and original souls can give birth to NPCs, you know. So I thought that was interesting.
Absolutely, and we're on the same wavelength on that as well because a friend of ours calls them bio robots. There's bio robots, there's NPCs, and knowing what I know from Super Soldier experience, it gets even weirder in the future because there's just human blanks that you can be put into. So
Oh
there's
yeah.
these things like, but no, I think in the current existence, only like 15 to 20% of us are soul bearing beings. Like the rest is just kind of filler. And I'm not being dismissive, and please don't write nasty
No.
comments about my own,
No.
but
I had a vision last summer. There are only 40 original souls on in this simulation right now. And what it is that they fracture and are able to store souls, store information. And I'm getting really bad pain right here. They don't want me to say this, but I'm still going to say it. And they create from the 40 souls. They create these other beings, and they can create up to like 2 to 3,000 at a time. And there was you can dig deep on they talk about in Canada there are these bases where they create um you know copies. And also in California there's an actual base by right past, what is it, Laurel Canyon, and it was like China Lake. And they create, and I've actually ran into some people that have memories. Oh, stop. It's like this horrible pain right here. um but they make children like cookies. So they're
mhm.
batches of 2 to 3,000 when they make them. And then the empty souls, they can put any chip in them from a fractured person. So, I mean, we're really getting into the conspiracy here, but um, I worked on with somebody that, I'm holding a crystal right here, and everybody's like, "Why do you like those?" And I was like, "Cause." I was like, "It's not just a rock; it's a sentient being." I used to carry it around in my bra all the time and talk to it. Yeah, I'm crazy, but anyway, but they're very sentient, just like trees. Animals. They're very sentient, and well, I got from her. She was an Akashic record holder. Like she worked in the Akashic, and she was deeply attached to trees, and she shared information that they used to store, like you'll see the crystalline caves. That is basically like an Akashic record holder, and they store everything on crystals.
Absolutely. And I want to circle back to something because this was one of my first rabbit holes, and I actually went on Typical Skeptic after doing some remote viewing and some research and some meditating. There was something called that they referred to as dews before pew pew dews. There is something known as the Distant Early Warning System and the Pine Tree Line. These are military installations that border most of North America and all through Canada and along the US-Canadian border. There's about, I think it's something around 20 something Diefenbunkers from John Diefenbaker that are also, just hidden in plain sight. These facilities do actually exist. That's not tinfoil hat shit. That is very, very real.
Mhm.
I did an entire project on it. There's dozens of military installations. Some of them you don't know why there's a town in the middle of nowhere. Guess what? It's because there's a base somewhere in that area, and that town is to support that base. And living in Canada, I can absolutely validate that there are some bases in just ridiculous places because towns just pop up out of nowhere, and then you see the giant antennas or the
Oh yeah.
the inexplicable hills with doors in them, and it's like, oh, okay, that.
I think I
So
was on Dan Winter's interview, and he was talking about like the reservations, and or maybe it wasn't Dan. Maybe it was a different person. I can't remember. Like, see, my memory is not quite back to what it was. But what it's almost like now I forgot what I was going to say. That's really bad. I shouldn't even talk about my memory. Should just be like, I have a photographic memory. But I don't know. It's something to do with, oh yeah, they put bases on reservations. And I grew up on a reservation, and I always felt like I was being watched from my bedroom. And the really weird address that I had, it was Route 2, Box 222A. That's really weird. That's a lot of twos, man.
that is
Yeah. And I just felt like this weird place. And it was like in the middle of Minnesota, and there was a lake there, and people would talk about seeing these UFOs dive into the lake, and then they'd wait for them to come up, and they never would. Well, that's where you could get into. Part of the base was in the water. And I lived not that far from like an actual, it was like supposed to be like, they called it Tower Hill, but there was like a tower there. And then there was like this really strange little building. And then they had like these fences, so you couldn't crawl in it, and or get into it. But what I was looking at it, I was like, that's way too small. And I was about 12 or 13. Ow. And what they would do would, I should have had my window open, man. I feel like something is hitting me in the head. But it was like almost like a elevator shaft. Like that building was so small, but there was like something underneath it, and I can like sense things like that, like sense, tunnels and weird things like that. But like a lot of the reservations do have these underground bases. And I had a friend of mine that was up in like probably up by Duluth area there, and someone come walking in, and they had like a like a regular cheap iPad from like Amazon or Walmart or something, and it was black with a screen. And they're like, hey, we found this out in the woods, I'm gonna sell it or pawn it, and they're like, he goes, but I can't figure out how to turn it on. So they're looking at this thing. There's no on or off button. There's nothing on the sides. There's no buttons on the sides. They're looking at it. Somehow my friend got it open. And when he opened it up, there was almost like tissue, like neural tissue, and different types of lighted. He didn't know what it was, but it looked very organic, almost biological. And he goes, how would you turn it on? And I told him, I was like, you turn it on with your third eye, with your consciousness. That's how because I have memories of these weird little things when I was a kid, and I'm being in like almost like a interactive classroom. and it was almost like a smart board, but I grew up in like the 80s, so they didn't have smart boards back then. But it
Yeah.
was like I could go into it just by having this nightlight in my room, and I would just stare at the nightlight, and it would be like I would just drift into this interactive classroom, and there would be like on the board there would be all kinds of formulas and equations and geometric shapes and stuff. I always felt so tired when I'd wake up, like I didn't get enough sleep at all.
Yeah. I often feel very run down, like you should wake up refreshed, and you're like, where the hell was I? Because I clearly wasn't sleeping. Another question from the chat: has she been abducted before? Sorry, crazy question. Sorry, not a crazy question in this audience because most of us have been.
No, I was when I was about 3, and then I have had like where I'm partially asleep and I'll like feign sleep like I'm sleeping. And it started in like 2000, I'm going to say 2001, 2000, maybe ended 2001. I was going down to Minneapolis with a friend of mine, and we were going down there we went down there at midnight, and we were going to just make a trip and come back. And as we were taking these back roads, I wasn't driving, she was driving, and I like look over, and there's like this weird orb, like this blue orb, and it's just chilling in the woods, but it's like I can see through it, and it looks like one of those Spencer balls that you put your hands on, and like all these rays come and hit your hand. I don't know what they're called, but it was blue, and I'm looking at it, and I was like, oh my god. And I wasn't going to say nothing, and about half a mile down the road she goes, did you see that? And I was like, see what? Because I was like, I want to hear what you saw, sir, before I say anything. And she described it, and it was blue. It was a blue, like a sphere, a orb. And after that, I started to leave my body. Not very long after seeing that thing, I was like, I would wake up on the ceiling, and I kept sleeping. Like I would sleep in the bedroom, and then I would go in the guest room, because I was like, what's going on? Am I getting attacked, by a demon, or what the heck's going on? And then the third night, or when was it? 2 nights in my bedroom, 1 night in the spare bedroom. And then the fourth night I was sleeping on the couch, and we had like an L-shaped living room. It was an old little lumberjack house. So it was really weird. And I'm like walking in my dream, I think, assuming it's a dream, and there's like black smoke around me, and I come out from the kitchen, which is the longer part of the shorter part of the L, and I take a right, and there's the living room, which is the longer part of the L, and I see my body on the couch. And I was like, immediately, as soon as I saw my body, it was like someone just yanked me hard as they could, and I just flew across the room, and I hit my body, and I woke up. And I was like, I wasn't sleeping. I don't know what's going on. I'm losing my mind. I went, drove across town and parked at my boyfriend's place of work because he worked graveyards, and I slept out in the car. That's how scared I was. I was like, what is going on? And I think someone finally told me, they're like, you're like traveling outside of your body. Like, calm down. It was like, well, I don't know what's going on. No one ever explained any of this to me.
Yeah. And that's something else that I've experienced since the awakening is astral projection and OBEs, some of them intentional, some of them not so much. I actually can completely identify with what you're talking about, because when I was doing it intentionally, I was doing some astral projection during sleep, like using meditation to go into sleep to astral project. And I was playing with things that I didn't quite understand. And there was times where it felt like something way bigger than me just slapped my dumb ass back into my body, because I'd be like, get back there. And like, just, like, to steal your last name, you kind of thunder back into your body, and you're like, holy shit, what was that? And, like, I would jolt so hard it would wake my wife up. She's like, are you all right? And I'm like, I am now. Like, I'm back in this, right? Like, so no,
it's very jarring when you first start. So this was recently, my aunt passed away in June, and when I found out she passed away, I was in complete tears, and I was like, I didn't, I got to see her before, but I felt like she had a message for me. So I'm like, oh, I just got dizzy there. I almost fell off the chair. But so I go and I lay down on the couch, and I start readying for my shamanic journey. And as I'm laying there, like it's almost like someone puts a halo on my head and it's tingles and it's like really tingly. And I'm like laying there. And sometimes it can be when they come and they take me, you can tell who's taking you by how they treat you. If it's somebody who's loving and caring, they'll treat you with kid gloves. If it's somebody like, my lab or anything like that, there's a person behind there with the button somewhere making it hurt as long as he can, because he's just a no talent, no gift having a-hole. And I've telepathically was like, can you hurry the F up? This effing hurts. Now I've given no consent to any of that and they can't bother me anymore. But we have to realize that is, you have all the sovereignty in the world. You just have to claim it. You have to be like, I'm a sovereign individual, and just go on. I was telling somebody earlier and I'm like, yeah, I just go on. Just say it. I no consent. Any contract, whatever, curse, hex, blah, blah, blah. I do not consent. I revoke all contracts. And you almost have to say it like daily, because they find loopholes and they'll come back in. And it's just like, it's irritating sometimes. But yeah, so I was laying down on the couch and my head was tingling. And all of a sudden I could feel this, like this weird energy just kind of went through my body. It wasn't painful, but it was just like, and laying there, and all of a sudden, and usually I fall asleep right after that, but for some reason I stayed very awake and sentient. And I'm laying there and my body's laying there, and all of a sudden it's drift out. And I'm like, holy smokes, I am an empty vessel right now. How am I, conscious of this? What the heck is going on? And it was like about a minute and a half. Not even that, probably like maybe 45 to 60 seconds. And I felt myself, and they just kind of had me over my body. And it was like, they dropped me. And I was like, oh, and I kind of it was like, whoa, that was so weird, and then after I kind of settled back in again, and I was just like, that was so weird, man. I was like totally empty, and I knew I was empty. I was like, my vessel is empty. Well, and it's a good thing I call in, my protectors and my guides when I go to sleep. You can do that. You can call in your ancestors. You can call in, if you feel very attached to a certain being, you see it all the time. Maybe, maybe it's a wolf or, something. You can call in these and watch over you. So I knew that I was watched over, that nothing was going to jump my body, but it just was a very unusual feeling knowing that my subconscious had left, and then it just dropped back into my body because they returned me at the same time, around the same time, within a minute. And then I went into the shamanic world, and I got the message from my aunt, and she was in the form of like a magpie. And she was like flying towards me, and I look up and I see her, and she's like dragging this big branch in her mouth, and she drops it and sits in a tree, and she's wearing like a scarf or a hat. I remember it was like thinking, oh my gosh, this bird is wearing clothes. And I'm looking at it, and I go and I grab my phone, and I'm just like, and I like hit the camera, and I'm looking at her, and she drops that branch, and it's like, it's got purple blossoms on it. And then I like take the picture, and it was just like, boom. It was like somebody hit me with, 1,000 watts. I couldn't see nothing. I was like, whoa. And I looked at the phone, and it was just this flash of light. So I didn't catch her on my phone. Well, obviously I was, in a totally different dream world, but it felt very real to me.
Absolutely. Rick was asking, when you were OBE, did it feel warm?
I've been going through that right now, probably for the last 3 years. I don't know if it's like getting my body ready for something that's going to happen, but I've been going, and people are like, "Oh, you're going through menopause," and I'm like, "I already did all that a long time ago." I was like, when you get a hysterectomy, that happens. You go through menopause, and it's been, I don't know, a long time since I had that, and I get these weird heat ups. Like as soon as I get back, my body is like on fire, and I have to like throw off the covers and turn the AC on or turn the fan on, and I'm just like, whoa, why does it do that? So that's funny that you mentioned that, because I have been noticing that a lot when I return, that my body heats up, like to the point where I can't even like, you know, and I'm sweating, like
Yeah.
it's running down my face. That's how hot it gets.
All right. We're coming up on 2 hours, so we'll take one more question. Have you ever been stuck out of your body when you journey or get lost?
No, you cannot. You are tethered to your body. It's almost like, the astronauts when they're out in space and how they're tethered to the space station. That's not real. But anyway, you see it in movies, how they're tethered to that. That is, you cannot, you no matter where you go, you're always going to find your way back. That's just how it was explained to me by my medicine man. And to call your protectors, and then make sure you have your medicine bag on you at all times when you are traveling. I call in at least 2 archangels at night, one to go with me and one to stay and watch over my body. And then I'll call in Sabe, to one to watch over my body, and another one to take me into the shamanic world and teach me, because he's supposed to be teaching us now. That was what the whole meeting was on July 11th. And I was like, you need to like start showing yourself, and what, now we're seeing him, and he was like, he's going to pick certain individuals that are enlightened and awakened enough to be able to teach him how to do this, how to travel via your pineal gland. Sorry, not penis gland. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. So that is amazing. I mean, that to me is a treat, that he is going to come in and pick individuals to teach this to. So
Yeah.
it might be any of you guys. And if it is, message me, let me know. I want to hear about it, because I'm just super excited.
And that leads into nicely. And I think there's a couple of podcasters in the chat as well that you're probably going to, I've thrown your Facebook link up there as well.
Oh, that's
where can everybody get a hold of you to tell you these stories, to find your products and services, and what do you have coming up?
Okay, you can message me. I am on Facebook, and that is Eve Thunder. And you'll see the picture from, well, now I have all kinds of Halloween pictures up. I've been having fun for Halloween because I don't go out and dress up anymore, but I do it on Facebook. I also have Rising Spirit it's a page on Facebook. It's linked on my under my bio on my Facebook page. I have a TikTok for the podcast, and it should be Prime Declassified. And then you can find me on Instagram with Prime Declassified. You can email me, and my email is, and you can it's Eve Howard 21 at mail, not Gmail, but mail, mail.com. You can email me, you can contact Don, and he can give you my phone number, as long as he, message me, is it okay if I give so-and-so, or this is what they want. I don't have any problem with that. And then hopefully my website will be up in about a week or so. It went under construction because I messed something up.
It happens, especially with people our age in technology. If it's not a TV you can smack on the side to get it to work anymore, I don't want to play with it.
Exactly.
But I'll get you to send me all of those links and all that stuff, and I'll copy and paste it into the description as well. I'm going to wrap things up here. And like I always say, I want to thank everybody that participated in the chat, everybody that's listening to this later on. And here's the part where I always say, if you can go outside, please do, because it's a lot better than sitting in front of this screen. I love you guys.